Okay, yay. So we're on. Baruch Hashem, I remembered to record. Okay. I love your coffee or your tea. It's a tea. L'chaim. Hashem should help. Everyone should get what we need out of this. And these 3 weeks of mourning should really be transformed to days of celebration and unity in the Beis HaMikdash, in the rebuilt Beis HaMikdash, without any explanations, without any, we shouldn't need a magnifying glass to find the joy and the blessings. If everyone should just feel and see revealed blessings everywhere in your life, like it should be so abundant. It should be just so good. We really, Klal Yisrael is ready for the good times. We're really ready for the good times. Thank you again for joining. So we were talking about developing awareness of our beliefs that contradict our sense of empowerment, right? That was number 12 on the, I don't remember what page it was. I believe maybe it's page 14. Is that right? I hope. It was page 14? Page 15. But number 12, develop awareness of your beliefs that contradict your sense of empowerment. So when a behavior is unthinkable to us, we're not going to do it even if we're triggered, right? And when a behavior is acceptable to us, it's going to pop into our actions. And we started talking about how, let's say somebody's really, really angry, like we would think they're nuts if they went ahead and threw seltzer bottles at the wall and watched as they smashed and bashed and crashed, right? We would think they're nuts. But what we do in our reactions when we get upset, if we yell or if we sulk or if we say nasty words, somehow that's okay, because what do you mean? Because we're normal, so whatever we do must be normal. We kind of adjust our beliefs according to our behavior instead of adjusting our behavior according to our beliefs. Now, I don't want anybody to use anything that we're saying to give you more reasons to judge yourself, because that's not the point. The point is to stop feeling disempowered. The point is to stop feeling stuck. And Hashem is really empowering us, and he gives us that power of choice. He gives us the power to choose. But what happens is, in a relationship, sometimes someone says something nasty, or in a relationship that has a history of disempowerment, we get triggered and we feel disempowered. And again, sometimes that could be just a relationship with money, a relationship with a certain situation, a relationship with ourselves. So what happens is, in that moment, we're distracted by what we lost. And in that distraction, or in the pain of our loss, where we lose sight of our power of choice. We forget that we actually could choose. But if we do choose, that's when we really feel that's part of how we take. That's a big part of how we take hold of our empowerment. Okay, I'm sorry that. So the biggest belief, the biggest disempowering belief in our relationships is that challenges are inherently disempowering. Like, whoever we talk to is going to say that if you have a challenge, it's inherently disempowering. Of course, you're going to be disempowered. Of course, you're going to feel weak if somebody is better than you, smarter than you, taller than you, stronger than you, has more money than you, is skinnier than you, is better dressed. It's like, or of course you're going to feel disempowered if somebody is talking disrespectfully to you, or if you have a major disappointment. Of course you're going to feel stuck, So we take that for granted, that we are going to be disempowered and we're not going to be able to make choices. And that in itself is really more than the challenge is disempowering. It's that's disempowering. So when someone says, I can't help it, I just do this. Right? I just do this. This is how I am. When someone yells at me, or when someone, this is just what I do. This is how I relate. I'm just turning this off. Sorry. This is what happens to me when I get upset. I know everyone has challenges and everyone has difficult relationships. So for me personally, I have patterns that I keep repeating, and I used to say, okay, this is what happens. I know that when I get upset, I'm going to yell. So I just shouldn't get myself upset. Now, again, I'm not saying anyone don't intentionally put yourself into toxic situations. It wouldn't be helpful for you. It wouldn't be helpful for anyone. It's self-destructive to put yourself into toxic situations that could hurt you. My point is that when you do find yourself in difficult relationships, in difficult situations, in challenging situations, just keep the spotlight of your mind focused inward and focus on your choices, because that's where your empowerment is. And instead of, obviously for a minute, you're gonna like get distracted and feel like, okay, I can't do anything, I'm stuck, or here I go again, I'm gonna do this and it's gonna happen and there's nothing I can do to change it. It's okay to, it's normal, it's human to feel that way or to actually do that for a minute, but try as much as possible to put the brakes, press the pause button, take a deep breath and refocus, recenter yourself within Hashem's empowerment of you, and make a conscious choice about who am I and who do I want to be. You know, every day, a few times a day, we remember going out of Mitzrayim. Why? Because that's when Hashem made us free. That's when Hashem made us free from what? Free from Mitzrayim, obviously. But to be free is really to be able to choose, if you think about it, right? What's a slave? A slave is somebody who has no choice. There's rules about everything. Think about somebody in prison. There's a time to sleep, there's a time to eat, there's what to eat, there's how to wear, every single thing is there's no choices. To be free is to be able to choose. And perhaps the reason why, not perhaps, I think I learned this in a sikha actually, that one of the reasons why we have to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim every single day is because if we don't consciously remember our freedom and plug into that freedom and take ownership of it and use it, we tend to give it up. We surrender our freedom to our challenges, to our situations, to other people, to our money, to our clothing, to our looks, to the food that's in front of us, to the circumstances that we surrender our freedom to the circumstances and conditions. And really, we never have to surrender our freedom to anyone. Hashem gives it to us. It's ours, and nobody and nothing can take us away. Nothing can take it away from us. So if you're ever feeling compelled, it's not the habit that's compelling you in itself. Of course, the habit, you know, we wire our brains and then our brains are wired in kind of the habit comes. But the habit is just what you're used to. It's not actually compelling you. It doesn't force you. It's our beliefs about our habits that compels us. It's our beliefs about our habits that compels us. It's our surrender to the habits that compels us. And so when we say Shema every day, that's our moment of freedom. That's also our moment we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem is one and He is our Elokeinu. He's empowering us. And we conclude the three parashas of Shema with remembering Hashem taking us out of Mitzrayim, right? Why? Because that's what we just did. When we say Shema, we experience, we reenact, we take new ownership of our personal Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is translated as we're no longer going to surrender to our circumstances, our conditions. As we go into the day, I don't have to surrender my choices to anything. I can really own my choices. I can think about it. I can be proactive about it. I can defy my habits. Even though my habit is to do this and that, I can be different. Okay, so that was that. I want to see the chat. So I see that there's something on it. Please don't forget to record. Thank you. I did. Okay, we're going to move on to the next page. Now, how do we become willing to defy our habits? It's very nice to say that, change your habits. How do we actually do that? Because we're very deeply connected to our habits. We're very deeply connected to our habits. More in our minds than in our bodies, right? Every time, what do they say? What is the scientific word for this? I think neurons that wire together, fire together. That every time we fire them together, they become wired together, right? If there's a certain pattern in our behavior, our brains get wired into that pattern. So we're very connected to our habits, especially in our minds. So I think the best way to defy our habits is really to, obviously it's a no-brainer, but it's to be willing to break those habits, to be able to tolerate the discomfort of that change, and more importantly, to be very committed to developing new habits. My father told us certain stories, he said many, many times, and they're very ingrained in our memories. One of the stories was this. He said there's a story of Reb Pesach Malostowska. Reb Pesach Malostowska was a chassid of one of the Rebbeim. There's a difference of opinion about which Rebbe was his Rebbe first. It's not so relevant, but I'm just apologizing. I don't remember the exact name. I believe it was the Tzemach Tzedek or the Rebbe Maharash. I don't remember for sure. So he, one time he was walking down the street and he saw a teenager, non-Jewish teenager, chasing a Jewish young girl, a young Jewish girl, and bothering her and running after her. And he intervened. He took that Gentile youngster, that young teenager, that strong guy, by his arms, and he distracted him enough that the young lady was able to run away and she was saved. So he really saved her life. He saved her dignity. He saved her honor. He saved her. He saved her future. He really saved her. But this guy was so angry at Reb Pesach. Reb Pesach was a young man, and this guy, Reb Pesach managed to shove him, but then this guy and Reb Pesach also tried to run away, but then this guy got up and he started chasing Reb Pesach. Pesach didn't know what to do. He couldn't shake off this person off of him, and he was dangerous. The guy picked up a hammer, like a big axe kind of hammer, and not a regular hammer, like a intense hammer, and or like a bat, and he was running after Reb Pesach. Reb Pesach ran into a wine store, and he ran into the attic, and he hid amongst the barrels, but then he did something even better for himself, Baruch Hashem. He found an empty barrel, he turned it upside down, he crawled into it, and he hid there. Of course, the guy was in there 2 minutes later, after he was hidden, and he's looking for him, and he's shaking around the barrels, and he didn't find him. But in anger, as he's leaving, he cursed very loudly, and I didn't find him, and I'm gonna get him, and he banged with his hammer on the barrel, exactly the barrel where Reb Pesach was hiding. And Reb Pesach suffered a concussion, and he lost his memory. And he went to the Rebbe for a bracha, and the Rebbe gave him a bracha that his memory would return. And his memory did return. But later on, the Rebbe was nifter a couple of years later. That's why I think it was the Rebbe Maharash. And Reb Pesach was sitting once at a Farbrengen or something in his house, and he suddenly said, "Oy, Rebbe." And Hasidim after realized that at that moment, the Rebbe was nostalgic. The Rebbe had passed away at that moment. And Reb Pesach realized, because in that moment, he lost his memory again. And he went to the Rebbe's son, who was the new Rebbe, the incoming Rebbe, and he again got a bracha that his memory should return, that he should be healed in the schus of the mitzvah that he did, and his memory did return. But later, towards the end of his life, he again lost his memory. And Reb Pesach would have a very interesting habit, okay? He left his house in the morning, talis and tefillin under his arm, walked to shul, went up the stairs, walked into shul, undid his talis, put on his tefillin, and stood and davened the entire shachris. Walked out, put together his tefillin and his talis, and walked out of shul. As he's walking out of shul, he forgot that he had already davened. He would go right back in and do the whole thing all over again. So basically, Reb Pesach Malostowski at the end of his, towards the end of his life, when he lost his memory, he sat in shul and stood in shul, davened from the morning to the night. He kept davening shachris, going out, coming back in, and starting all over again. And Hasidim would say about him that Reb Pesach wird vergessen und davenen noch einmal. Aber vergessen davenen, das nicht. Right? They said Reb Pesach would forget and he would daven again. But to forget to daven, never. Never. He would never forget to daven. So what was that? What was that? He never lost the habit of davening. Why? Because it was so deeply ingrained in him. He did it so many times that it became so much a part of him that this is he just never forgot. Even when he lost his mind, he didn't lose his davening. So I you know, my mother-in-law, she should live and be well. She's Kenai Nahara. She's Kenai Nahara in her 90s, and she doesn't have her memory intact. But not one word, not one negative word crosses her lips. Not one. She's always saying, take, good. You come to her, she says, hi, very nice, very good. Only good words. And it's amazing because she doesn't have a filter anymore, you know? I don't know if I would lose my mind's filter, what would happen, you know? But chas v'shalom, I should never lose it. But, you know, we're filtering our minds. Imagine if we could develop a habit that's so strongly ingrained that even if chas v'shalom, we lose our filter, or even when we're tired, we still have that quality. That's what we want to do. How do we get there? How do we change our behavior? How do we, that just makes actually the question much stronger, because how do we change such a behavior? Let's say, you know, how do we change a behavior that is so deeply embedded in our psyche? Like, how do we do that? How do we reach there? If it's beyond our conscious thought, it's actually in our subconscious. How do we change it? So first of all, we have to realize that having a habit is not a dead end for the power of choice. It's not a dead end. It's not like, oh, I have this habit, so therefore, you know, I'm always gonna suffer from it. Oops. It's not a dead end. It just means, it doesn't mean that change is impossible. It just means that it's more uncomfortable and it takes more courage and more investment of work. I want to talk about a tool that the Baal Tanya introduces in Perek, I think in Perek Yud Gimel in Tanya. In the Tanya, the Baal Tanya teaches many principles, many ideas, many truths. My own understanding is that every principle can also be used as a tool, which we spoke about already last week, right? So in Perek Yud Gimel, the Baal Tanya talks about a Beinoni whose mind is conflicted, right? In Perek Yud Beis, the Baal Tanya says, Mayach shalat halev, his mind is clear. When your mind is clear, your behavior will be clear. So get clear in your mind, right? Daven. When you daven, you're going to reach such a deep level of commitment and connection to Hashem. Your mind will be clear, then your behavior will be clear. Your behavior will be empowered because your mind is empowered. Your behavior will reflect a connection to Hashem because your mind is so deeply connected to Hashem, right? So that's a tool. In Perek Yud Gimel, the Baal Tanya says, but wait a minute. What about a person what happens when the battle is already in my mind? When there's a part of my mind that knows I should not respond right now because I'm too upset and whatever I say is going to be wrong. There's a part of my mind that says I should move forward even though I feel intimidated. There's a part of my mind that says do the right thing even though somebody's going to roll their eyes. There's a part of my mind that knows what's right and really wants to do what's right for me, for the world, right? For my neshama. But then there's another part of my mind that says, no, I'll give you an example, right? There's a part of my mind that knows sugar is not good for me. Don't eat it. There's another part of my mind that says it actually is good and you deserve it, right? And we all know what that looks like. Imagine giving a kid asks you for a lollipop and you say, no way, you can't have a lollipop before dinner, but with your right hand, you hold out a lollipop, right? You're holding out a lollipop and you say, no, you can't have it. What's the kid gonna do? Take the lollipop and go, right? So the same thing, our nefesh, when our mind is conflicted, when part of our mind says, sure, I'm gonna show up with courage. And another part of my mind says, no way, Shterna, you're crazy. You can't do that. You're gonna you're going to be so embarrassed of yourself. Don't do this. Or there's a part of our mind that says, I want to be kind. I want to show up with kindness. Another part of my mind says, don't. You're going to be taken advantage of. You're going to be hurt, right? So when our mind is conflicted, that's when we're really in trouble. So what do? That's what the Baal Tanya talks about in Perek Yud Gimel. He says that there's another kind of Beinoni, right? Because the Beinoni that he's talking about in Perek Yud Gimel is not the same one that's in Perek Yud Beis, that there's Moach Shal Tahalev and that's all he needs. Perek Yud Gimel, he says, Ki yamod li min evyon lo'ishia mishaftei nafshay. It's a pasuk in Tehillim that's brought down in the Gemara. That Hashem, it's such a beautiful visual if you think about it. Hashem stands by the right side of a person and saves him from that voice of judgment that wants to lead him astray. So what's going on? In that, when our mind is clear, it's natural. Our behavior will naturally follow. But when our subconscious mind is hijacked, which is the case when we have any negative habit, any disempowering habit, any habit that's not consistent with our neshama, is really, it's subconsciously wired into us. So there's a part of our mind that says, no, I don't want to be doing this. And then there's a part of our mind that says, go do it. Because we wouldn't be able to do it if our mind wouldn't give us permission to do it. So, yeah, so for that, we need Hashem's help. And what is that help? The Baal Tanya says, and it's so beautiful, the help is the radiance of Hashem's light on our neshama. Hashem's light that shines on our neshama, that's Hashem's help. And this gives Hashem's radiance of light, the Ar Ein Sof that illuminates our neshama, is the help that Hashem gives us. And this is what gives our neshama the quality of light over darkness. And he says, Kinal, like as explained in Perek Yud Beis. And over there, I'm sorry if this is too technical. I hope it's okay that I'm getting into a little bit of the science, but I think it's so helpful to know clearly what the Tanya says. So he says over there that what's this quality of light over darkness? That just like light automatically pushes away darkness, so too our neshama, the minute our neshama shows up, automatically our nefesh habahamis, our darkness, our disconnection fades away. The minute we do something that connects us to Hashem, our sense of disconnection fades away. Or let me say it in the words that we're using it now, the minute we do something that's empowering, not just empowering, but that's true from our true source of empowerment, which means it's in harmony with our neshama, but we make a choice that's consistent with our neshama. The minute we do that, automatically we become more disconnected, more removed, a little bit more detached from that unpleasant habit. So that's the secret, that's the pathway, and it's not a secret because it's in Tanya, so it's not a secret, but that's the path to change. That's really the path to change. The path is one action. That's Hashem's special help. All we have to do is take one action, and Hashem's help is that one action that we do will will give us strength and will lead us towards more good action and will disconnect us from what we want to disconnect from. It will disconnect us from what we want to leave behind. So I'm going to read what it says in the worksheet here. That's a good summary of what we just said. Even when we consciously decide to change our behavior, we're still subconsciously connected to our old patterns of thought and action, right? I could decide I want to change the way I eat. I could decide I want to change the way I sleep. I could decide I want to change the way I speak to other people. I want to be more kind. I could decide I want to actually speak up. I could decide I want to do something. I want to use my time better. I want to organize myself better, whatever it is. But subconsciously, I'm wired differently because I've had a habit for so long. So we're still very subconsciously connected to the old way that we used to be. Without Hashem's help, and the Baal Tanya quotes this in the Tanya, he says, the Gemara says, without Hashem's help, there's no way in the world we would be able to change. There's no way we could actually make this change. And I think that that's so validating to know, because if it feels hard, even the Gemara says it's hard. Not only does the Gemara say it's hard, the Gemara says it's impossible. It's impossible to change. The only way we could change is because Hashem enables us to, empowers us to, gives us the energy and the courage. He cheers us on, literally. So without Hashem's help, we would not be able to hold on to his empowerment. Hashem himself stands by our right side and helps us. Hashem gives our empowered behavior the quality of light over darkness. Okay? So when you're feeling compelled to think, speak, or do a disempowered behavior, let Hashem help you stay connected to your empowerment. That's the bottom line. You know, when somebody's poor, when someone says, that kid who's tired and hungry and says, I'm so hungry, and you offer them food and they're like, no, and you offer them something else and they're like, no, and you offer them something else and they're like, no, that kid who's like, they just don't, and you realize they're just really too tired to eat. Sometimes we're unable to change, but we're not really willing to accept help from the one who can help us. In order for us, Hashem wants to help us. We cannot change on our own. In order for us to allow to receive Hashem's help, what we need to do is let our neshama show up. We need to light that spark. Hashem turns it into a shining flame. We need to light that spark. Hashem makes it that our light will have the quality of light over darkness, and it will have an impact, a lasting impact. We have to push. Hashem will give power to that push. We have to take the step forward. Hashem will give us wings that will make that step forward, will give so much more energy, vitality, and power to that step forward. So that's what we need to do. That's our part. So whenever you're feeling disempowered, or you're feeling compelled, okay, now is I was just triggered. Here goes the script. I'm going to do that. I'm going to overeat, overwork, overspeak, overshare. I'm going to do something that's not consistent with my neshama. It's not healthy for me. So the only way to stop, to change, is to let Hashem help you stay connected with your empowerment. To activate Hashem's help, make one choice. Make one choice that's in harmony with your neshama. That's really, and sometimes it's just a choice of how to think. Sometimes it's just thinking about Hashem or thinking about your neshama, because sometimes you don't have the courage yet to do it, right? With that choice, even if it's just a machshava tova, even if it's just a thought, you will automatically be connected with Hashem's empowerment of you, because that action, that one little choice that you made, has the power of light over darkness. Okay, first let's go for questions, and then let's first do the question on the bottom of this page. Again, going back to this, if I want you to to make this as impactful for you as it could be, I would love for you to think of a situation. And like for me, I said that's like my eating. Although Baruch Hashem, I got much better because of a commitment I made to bypass my mind. And this is also, we have to kind of sometimes bypass our minds, right? Because a poor person, I'm like, I'm poor in this. I have poor judgment. I can't really rely on my judgment. I have to just stay true to my commitment. That's also part of it. So in the moment, I can't rely on my judgment. I just know I need to be quiet, let's say, when I get upset, or I just need to not. If there's a question, I'm gonna ask somebody else. I'm gonna ask a good friend who knows about my situation. Okay, so ask yourself, in a disempowering moment, in a disempowering situation, ask yourself, considering Hashem's emes, what do I want to believe about myself right now? What do I want to believe about myself right now? And what action can I take to demonstrate this belief? So I'll give you one example. Somebody had a habit of shutting down in a conversation. Whenever they would get upset, they would automatically shut down, retreat, escape, not be part of the conversation, and kind of just tune out and stonewall the other person. And once they became aware of this behavior and they wanted to change it, she actually just shared this with me this week, so it's fresh in my mind. She's like, okay, she thought about, I mean, there's a part here that's not written here, but I'll share with you anyways. When reflecting on this habit, she realized that there was a part in her mind that believed there's nothing she could say that will be right, so she may as well just shut up because she lost anyway. And the pain of losing and being so beaten was so hard for her that she just would shut down. And actually this was more hurtful to the other person than anything she could have possibly said, as we all know, right? So what she said is, considering Hashem's emes, what do I want to believe about myself right now? She said that I have what it takes to stay engaged in this conversation, even though it's uncomfortable, I could do it. And the action that she could take, she said, what action can I take to demonstrate this belief is I could actually stay engaged, stay in that chair, stay in that seat. You know, in the beginning, she said the first time she tried it, you know, she had to hold on to the seat, literally, you know, and that was I didn't speak to her following up because this was just a recent conversation, but do it. A little bit of light dispels all the darkness, and one action, Hashem gives power to our action and really takes us out of that disempowerment. Let's go to the chat. Can a non-his change? Can a non-yid change? Does Hashem help them too? It's a good question. I don't know. The Tanya, this particular tool was written specifically for Yidden, so I don't know. But I would imagine that it's you know, anybody who wants to change, Hashem will help them. A non-Yid doesn't have an neshama. I'm sure the path is probably different, but I don't know. It's a good question. Somebody wrote, I think so. So, okay. How not to react when you hear the news that is out there that intends to be empowering? How to keep my personal empowerment at that time? It tends to be disempowering, she probably meant. I love this question because I'm sure everybody's feeling it, especially now these days. When the news is so disempowering, how do you hold on to your empowerment? I want to try to answer this question using the language we've been using, right? Remember we said, what's the one thing that makes us lose our empowerment? It's the pain, right? The pain of whatever we lost, and in this case, it's our sense of security. The pain of what we lose distracts us from the possibility of our choices. And that's what happens when we read the news. We kind of totally lose sight. We feel like little weaklings, like totally the world is chaotic. We are nothing but specks of dust on the universe and powerless, and all the systems are falling apart. And that's totally disempowering. I don't think there's anything, like I think it's the same like what we would do in any situation, which is take an action. Take an action. I mean, we spoke about a few things, but it could be prayer, you know, daven, turn that moment of fear into a moment of prayer, because let that fear be, actually, we didn't talk about fears. We're going to in a minute. That's the next page. Let's talk about that. I'm going to come back to that because we're going to do that as fears, but that would make, you know, fear is the one thing we said is also something that tends to break off our sense of empowerment. But imagine if we use our fears as springboards to prayer, then our prayer has so much more energy, even more energy than we could possibly have had without the fear. And that's how the Yerida is with Tzarech Aliyah. So it doesn't mean we should go now and read every newspaper and all the news sites, especially the conservative ones that tell the inside story, the truth about all the lies and all the destruction and all the evil of the world. Actually, both sides of the news, whether you're reading the liberal news or you're reading the conservative news, it's all bad, it's all terrible, it's all like the world is about to, chas v'shalom, collapse. We know the truth that the world is metamorphosizing. Is that the word? I don't know how to pronounce it. The world is shifting into a state of Geula. There's no question about it. So yeah, people don't know how to interpret it. We ourselves don't know how to interpret it, but we have a promise that Mashiach is coming. And as Yidden, it's like you're waiting by a train station. You know, when you hear the rumbling of the earth underneath your feet, you know the train is coming. It's not Corona. It's not the Black Lives Matter protests. That's bringing Mashiach. It's the fact that we feel the rumbling under our feet that is a sign that the train is coming. Mashiach is happening. And because of that, the best thing we could do is focus again on our choices and what we can do to be part of the solution, chas v'shalom, not to be part of the problem. I want to believe about myself that I am caring, empathetic, persistent, respectful, thoughtful. Wow, I love this list. Empathetic, I'm going to copy it. Dignified, resilient, courageous, loving, patient, giving, kind, and worthy of carrying Hashem's light. Thank you, Batya. That is a fantastic list. Thank you. Especially people, okay, somebody added to the question before, especially people telling me about rising anti-Semitism. I want to believe that I can stay calm when I'm upset. And action to believe that is I can take deep breaths, reframe, and picture a calm scene. Thank you. So that's a great action that you could take in a moment of disempowerment. Where am I? Sorry. Okay. I used all your words in your book. I love you. They felt like new words. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to fear. By the way, all these things that we just talked about, we talked about pain, habits, pain, beliefs, habits, and now we're on to fear. These things are just things that get in the way of our empowerment. But at the end of the day, the goal of our talking about them right here together is so that we can just let go of it. And for the same purpose, all of them are leading to the same end goal, that we want to stay empowered. We want to stay connected with our sense of Hashem's empowerment of us, with that our Hashem, that light of Hashem that's shining directly, that's the energy that's flowing straight to us, and the light of Hashem that's radiating within our neshama. Okay, so let's talk about fears for a minute. It is so human to be afraid. Like people who don't feel afraid, like if you never feel afraid, it means you're not connected to your emotions. Fear is one of the most basic human emotions. So we cannot escape our humanness. So what do we do with fears? I believe the best way to deal with fears is to embrace them as opportunities for taking care of a need. Fears are friends in a certain sense. Either they're coming to tell us to do something to take care of ourselves. You know, recently in the winter, there were many cases of anti-Semitism in Crown Heights and in the New York area, as well as other places around the world, but I live in New York. And people were feeling a sense of fear. Like people would say, like, I remember even I was at a conference and we all walked in through a door that was on this side of the room, and suddenly in middle of the session, the door, like a hidden door on the opposite end of the room, a staff only door, suddenly burst open, and a huge clunk of chairs was being pushed into the room, and we all jumped. Like we were afraid because we were all sensitized to like sudden movement and sudden movement coming from unexpected places. So in a certain sense, that fear is a good thing, because if I wouldn't be, let's say chas v'shalom, it would be something dangerous, my fear would help me get myself safe. It would help me get to a safer place. It would help me take action to protect people, including myself, right? So let's say you look around the room and you're like, I'm feeling very afraid, my heart is pounding, but there's actually no reason to be afraid. Like there's nothing I can do. Either there's no reason to be afraid, or there is a reason to be afraid, such as when you read the news, it's very fearsome, but there's nothing that I personally can do about this. I am not a politician. I am not a community activist. I am not any kind of activist. I'm me. I'm a shlucha. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a businesswoman. I'm not a politician, and I'm not a community activist. I'm not politically involved in any way. I don't have any connection, and it's not my line of work. It's not my thing. Does it mean, so some people will say get guns. That's their way. That's one way. It's still not going to protect the whole world, and guns are not everything either. So what's the answer? I believe that if there's nothing you could do physically, when there's nothing to do physically, then it's really important to use that energy as prayer, because then your prayer has a really powerful punch that wouldn't be there if we didn't have to pray. So let's look at this worksheet, because I love it. It's one of my favorite ones. The more closely, and we're going to also talk about it in context of our relationships, because I believe that in every interaction, we're either engaging from a place of love or we're engaging from a place of fear. And very often, okay, the more closely we're related to a person, the more strongly we feel invested in them. And this naturally invites fear into our hearts, fear for the other person and fear for ourselves, right? What if I don't have what I need? What if something happens to this person? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to our family if this behavior continues? This is going to kill us. This is going to destroy us. This is going to bring shame onto us. Whatever it is, we have tremendous fear around the relationships where we're very involved and very invested. And that's the natural reaction. So what do we do with that? Whenever you find yourself getting angry, anger is always whenever you're angry at your kids or your husband, very often it's fear. The reason why you're getting angry at your husband is really you're afraid of not having your needs met. The reason why you're angry at your kids is you're afraid of their future. You're afraid for them. You love them. You don't want anything bad to happen to them. So you're afraid. You're afraid. So from that love comes fear, and from the fear comes anger. So when you're feeling angry, take a deep breath, slow down, and ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And this is not for being afraid. This could also be for when you're feeling totally disempowered and angry after reading the news. What am I afraid of? Put it in words. I think it's very important to have it in words. Sometimes fear is telling us to take action that could protect us. So ask yourself, what is the fear telling me to do? Maybe I need to have an important sit-down conversation with my daughter. Maybe she really doesn't know what her behavior can lead to. Maybe I need to have a conversation with my husband and tell him my real concerns, not in a place of anger, but really we're in a possible setting where he can really hear me. Or maybe I need to invest in buying better an alarm system for my house, or bars on my window, or a better mezuzah. Maybe I need to check my mezuzahs. I'm just giving you an example of action that we might be able to take that can, what is the fear telling me to do? Sometimes it's giving us an advice that we need to take action. When there's no action that you could take to protect you, or when you already took the action but you're still feeling afraid, turn the fear into a tefillah. This really transforms your experience from a moment of disempowerment to a moment of connection and reinforced empowerment. Fear is not shameful. Fear is not a sign that you lack faith. Fear can actually energize your prayers and bring great blessing into the world for yourself and all of us, everyone else in the world. So put your fear into more descriptive words, and then use those exact words to form a tefillah. And that tefillah is going to be so meaningful and so beautiful. And once you do this once on the paper, you'll be able to do it without a paper. Just consciously, you're walking down the street and you see something that makes you really uncomfortable. Just, Hashem, please keep that person safe, or keep me safe, or, you hear what I'm saying? Or Hashem, please let this happen in a way that's, revealed good. Let this person have a healing. Let this person succeed in their job interview. Let it go well, please, Hashem. Change it into, instead of worrying, which accomplishes nothing, You may as well turn it into a tefillah, which accomplishes so much. So in every interaction, we're engaging in one of two opposite ways, from the place of our disempowerment, our anger and our fears, or our empowerment, which gives us love and connection and tefillah. So we want to choose Hashem and choose empowerment, and obviously choose love and choose geula, right? I'm going to take a minute here for questions. Do you have any advice of how to deal with feelings of resentment for times when you feel hurt? Yeah, so we didn't talk about resentment, and I think it's a very important topic. Resentment really is the belief that because of this person, I suffered. Because of this person, this person ruined me. They damaged me. They damaged my life. They did something destructive to me. And that in itself is actually a lie, because they didn't. They didn't do it. Imagine if somebody would tell you that whatever that person did, I'm going to use something, a very extreme example, but maybe there was, I heard this once at a lecture somewhere, and it struck me, so I'm going to share it with you. I didn't make it up, and I apologize if it's negative. They said, okay, somebody ruined a shidduch, okay? They spoke badly, and it wasn't even true, and da-da-da, and they ruined the shidduch, okay? Imagine if somebody would tell you that the reason that person made that phone call or spoke the way they did is because there was a gun to their head, and they had no choice. They really had to do it that way. Imagine if you would, right? All of a sudden, your perspective would shift. Like if somebody bumps into you, and they bump into you because they're being rude and they're just rushing and they couldn't care less, you would get upset. But if somebody bumps into you and then you look at them and you realize they're sitting in a wheelchair, then all of a sudden your heart melts. You're not upset with somebody who bumps into you because they're in a wheelchair. You're upset with somebody if they bump into you and they couldn't care less about you, right? So if you think about it from that perspective, like, you know what, the truth is, you don't have to go there. You don't have to think about a gun to the person's head, because that's like chasing away darkness. It touched me when I heard it, but I think the best thing is just like recognize that the energy of your life is happening between you and Hashem, and take it up with God, because He could handle your anger. He could handle your frustration. He could handle your neediness, your pain, your real sorrow over what went wrong. And it's really from Him. That's the truth. If He didn't want it to happen, there's nothing that anybody in the world could have done to make it happen. So resentment is hurting yourself. It's not hurting the other person. It doesn't mean you should engage in a relationship with that person, but definitely liberate yourself from resentment, because it's only hurting you. It's I don't know what I could say to convince you, but it takes courage to let go of resentment. You could forgive. You don't have to forget in order to forgive. You could forgive by just recognizing, put it all on God's plate. Put it in His bag. Put it in His territory. Recognize that it only came from Him, and nothing bad comes from Him. That means inevitably there's something good in your life that's going to happen. You know, Baruch Hashem, I want everybody here to only have revealed good. But I am sure if we opened up this conversation, I'm sure that people, you know, if you asked me this when I'm 20, I couldn't answer this question. But Baruch Hashem, 47 and counting, I could tell you there were so many things in my life that seemed so negative. And looking back, I am so grateful for having had those opportunities. That somebody asked the Rebbe Rayatz about his imprisonment, and he said this, such powerful words. I think I included in the book. He said, if somebody would offer me 1,000,000 rubles to go back to prison for one day, I would never do it. But if somebody would offer me 5 million rubles to never have had that experience, I would also not agree. right? Because in retrospect, you see that everything that Hashem does has some goodness in it. Always, if the Rebbe Rayatz, who suffered such torture, could say that about his experience in prison, we'll be able to say that. Certainly when Mashiach comes, we'll be able to say, Oitcha Hashem ki anaftabi. The Rebbe cried when he said these words, right? But we'll be able to say them. We don't understand it now. And we say, Hashem, don't give us such challenges anymore. At the same time, we do believe that when the curtains come down and all is revealed, we'll see that everything was good. How can we understand it? We can't understand it just as much as we can't understand Hashem. But back to the question, it's not about the other person. Your life happens between you and Hashem. So resentment is a choice that we make to really like be disempowered. Somebody said in the name of Rabbi Shais Taub, and I think this is such a brilliant line, he said, you're only victimized for one moment or for 1 hour, for whatever the duration of the experience. After that, you're a victim by choice. It's not, after that, every minute of resentment, every minute of victimhood is a choice. And we don't have to make that choice. We could choose empowerment. We could choose to live with Hashem's energy and recognize that He's our power. And with that, we let go of the resentment between the other person, from the other person. Okay, where is that mashal from about the earth rumbling under our feet when the train is coming? I want to repeat it. It's terrific. I don't know where the mashal is coming from. I think it was my own visual of understanding how, like, what it's like to wait for Mashiach. I didn't see it in a sefer, but it's just when, I mean, it's based on how we were taught. The Lubavitch Rebbe would always talk about current global events as like indicators that Mashiach was coming. You know, why? Not because, he knew with prophetic vision that this UN whatever rule or whatever it's called, resolution has to happen, or this peace treaty between these two cities has to happen in order for Mashiach to come. That's not what it was. He knows Mashiach is coming, right? So automatically anything that's happening, any rumbling in the world is going to be translated as part of that. So the actual mashal I made up, but I didn't make up the concept. When the Rambam says that Mashiach, we believe in Mashiach, you know, to be waiting for Mashiach every minute. That's the Rambam's idea. Where's the bit about reminding ourselves of Hashem's empowerment of us in this fear scenario? In a moment of fear, you automatically feel helpless. You feel that the circumstances and conditions are going to control you. It all comes back to Hashem's empowerment. Okay, let's go back to, let me summarize this, and then I'll see if there's more questions after that. I see there are a few more, but let me go back to this because I feel like this is going to be proactive, okay? It all comes back to this. In the space where Hashem is true, He is the only power, okay? He's empowering us to choose. And so all that matters right now is that we make the right choice. We make a choice right now that's in harmony with His power and with His empowerment of us. That's all that matters. We don't have to worry about what happened yesterday. We don't have to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. Right now, He is giving us life. And with this life, He's giving us the power to choose. So in the place of fear, so then what kind of choice are we going to make? Some situations I'm going to make a prayer. I'm going to say, you know, in a moment of fear, I might want to use that energy to say a prayer. That's all about what choice am I going to make? Am I going to, in the other example, because I feel His empowerment, I'm going to let go of that resentment and instead open my heart to seeing the blessings in my life and to seeing how much I've grown, how sensitive I became because of my unpleasant experiences, how much I learned from that unpleasant, how I grew from it, how much strength I got because of it, just for example. So that's really, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. I said also that I would speak about the process of change. So just one line, and we'll talk about it more on Wednesday, but just one line about it is that nothing happens overnight. And somebody asked me this question again today by WhatsApp. And again, I'm going to ask everybody here to, unfortunately, I was planning on copying and pasting questions that people sent in and keeping a document of it. And I lost some of the questions, and I thought I was archiving it, and I think I by mistake deleted it. I feel really bad. If you have any questions that you would like to be addressed based on what we spoke about in the last 3 parts, this Wednesday night is mostly going to be questions. If you sent me a question, do me a favor and just, you probably still have it in your email or in your text or in your WhatsApp, just resend it to me, 718-576-0338. I would appreciate if you resend it to me, so I'm going to just put it all into one file, and we'll try to address them based on what we're talking about together. But the process of change is not overnight. It all boils down to really one action at a time. And let's remember that watched water never boils, watched behavior never changes, right? Watched husbands never change, watched children never change. And watched ourselves, if we watch ourselves, just like watched water never boils, if we keep an eye on ourselves waiting for the magic to happen, it doesn't happen. Our job is 100% of our attention needs to be focused on our choices. In what way am I going to demonstrate Hashem's empowerment of me here and now? That's the most important question to ask yourself every day. In what way am I going to demonstrate Hashem's empowerment of me? In what way am I going to let Hashem's light shine forth? In what way am I going to let Hashem make a difference? And that's the epitome of Dir B'Tachtainim. That's the epitome of transformation, of Goyla to Geula, that we're all trying to experience as well as invite into the world. So where's the bit about reminding ourselves of Hashem's empowerment of us in this fear scenario? It's all the same thing. With reminding, we always need to bring ourselves back to Hashem's empowerment of us. And that's what makes us who we are. And that's what makes us not helpless victims to our fear. We don't need to surrender to our fear. We don't need to surrender to our beliefs. We don't need to surrender to our habits. We need to surrender to our anxiety or to anyone or anything. The bottom line is, let's not give away our power of choice. It's the most precious gift we have that Hashem gives us every day. Where did you say it says in Tanya to talk to your heart? Where did it say in Tanya to talk to your heart? I could look it up. Please, whoever that was, email me or WhatsApp me that question. It's in one of the prakim about between Yud Gimel and I would say Yud Zayin, but I'm not sure which one. Someone's suggesting that when you could say the 12 Pesukim, when you're feeling afraid, say the 12 Pesukim. That's another way of connecting. What to do about, it's a very nice way of connecting. Because if the 12 Pesukim are meaningful to you, then that's gonna do something for you. And also they have a special spiritual potency. So it's a special, some people say, Mizmar LeDavid, Hashem Ra'i Lo Yachsar, Kapitel Chaf Gimel. To somebody who was ridden by doubts and fears and anxiety, the Lubavitcher Rebbe suggested that they learn Kapitel Chaf Gimel very well and study it well. And from time to time to say it, Kapitel Chaf Gimel. So there's beautiful songs to the Kapitel Chaf Gimel. And anyone who's feeling afraid by the news or anything that's going on, Kapitel Chaf Gimel is beautiful. 12 Psukim is also beautiful. What to do about worry, concern, and Rahmanis for another? Are those disempowering feelings? How can they be directed? I love the way you wrote this. I love your question because you're asking, how can these feelings be directed? Emotions, by definition, are not empowering or disempowering. It's where our mind is and what we do with it that could be empowered, right? No circumstances could trigger our sense of disempowerment. Emotions are trigger. They're our natural immediate response. It's what we do with it. You're answering your own question. How can they be directed? So it's the same thing. It's taking ownership. Take a deep breath, slow down. And in the book, I'm going to print this up for next week. I mean, not for Wednesday night, because I believe it all comes down to it. The vicious cycle of disempowerment and the cycle of empowerment. But it's three things. It's Hashem's empowerment, Hashem's power, his empowerment of us, and our choices. So that's the cycle of empowerment. How can they be directed? Just think about Hashem's power. Surrender in the moment, connect, plug in to that energy, to that place where he's your power. He's giving you the power to choose. And your feelings are not facts. They're just feelings. They're going to pass. It's okay. You don't have to obey them. You don't have to act on them. You can let them pass. You can let them blow over. It's okay. It's okay. You're talking about feelings that you don't want to express in action. So just let them pass. And if they're not passing and you're still there, take an action that demonstrates, goes back to the same thing. I hope I'm not sounding repetitious, but take an action that demonstrates your empowerment. Whether it's washing your face with cold water, something simple as that. Slowly making a bracha, shahakol niyeh b'dvarei, or shahakol niyeh b'dvarei, whatever your nusach is. Like it's that in itself breaks the train. You're on a train, right? And you're speeding. That's where your thoughts are and your emotions are. But when you interrupt your thought pattern, you interrupt your emotion, you distract your body for a minute from it, you can get into a different space. Okay, I love how in your book you talk about giving power to otherness is avodah zarah, giving that it's all from Hashem. Thank you. It's important to learn to form the habit of attributing all power to Hashem. When we attribute power to others, immediately we need to remind ourselves that thought pattern is avodah zarah. Change that thought process to, this is where Hashem wants to see me carry my light. Beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, somebody's sharing that she said, this week, a resentment came up for me over someone's action. And I remembered, oh, okay, I'm not going to do this as a victim. For 1 minute I was a victim. I'm not going to volunteer for victimhood. And she was able to let go that resentment. Hooray. If Hashem is empowering change, why can't it be automatic? It is automatic. We do need to do something. Hashem wants us to take that. It is automatic. All we have to do is one little, even a machshava, even one thought. Already we're in that space of, where we've crossed the bridge. We don't have to get rid of all the darkness. We just have to bring in one little light, and Hashem takes care of the rest. So it is automatic. We have to set the ball rolling for that automatic response. I hope that's good. We do have to set the ball rolling. What do you think is going on when my excitement about Torah turns into pushing too hard and judging other people? I would love to hear other people's thoughts about that. I think it's the same thing. Like, because you're so excited about Torah, love, and you care about somebody else. I mean, think about the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. They were Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. They knew how to love. It's because they loved each other so much that they couldn't tolerate each other's differences. They couldn't tolerate that somebody else is not going to have the beauty of Torah as they experience it. How could you have it that way? I need you to have it my way. So it comes back to the same, it's coming from a good place. It's coming from probably you caring a lot about other people. I don't think it's coming from your Yetzer Hara, but you just need to know that it pushes people away. It doesn't bring them close. So if you really care about them, love them. Love them, love them, love them. Love is the only way, especially these days. I don't know why I can't scroll down. Yeah, the Rebbe has told many people also to learn Shar HaBitachon in Chayvus Halavaves. That's true. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. I'm gonna stop the recording now, and we can have a Fabrengen. But thank you so much for joining. We're gonna be back in Mirz Hashem Wednesday night at 9:30. How do I close recording. Yes.